Little boy hides. Every time mom arrives, teacher follows him to the bathroom and gasps. The September sun cast long shadows across Oak Ridge Elementary School's playground as Rebecca Collins watched her first-grade students file out through the double doors at the end of another school day. 23 children bursting with stories to tell, artwork to display, and the particular brand of exhausted excitement that only 6-year-olds could maintain after 7 hours of learning. Rebecca had been teaching first grade at Oak Ridge for 5 years now, long enough to recognize patterns in children's behavior. The ones who raced toward waiting parents, the ones who lingered to avoid going home, the ones who sat quietly until their names were called for after-school programs. But Ethan Parker didn't fit any of these patterns. "Ms. Collins?" A small voice pulled Rebecca from her thoughts. Ethan stood before her, clutching his red folder against his chest like a shield. His sandy blonde hair fell across one eye, and he made no attempt to brush it away. "Yes, Ethan?" Rebecca knelt down, bringing herself to his eye level. With 24 students in her class, she tried to give each child at least one moment of undivided attention every day. With Ethan, these moments felt especially important. "I forgot to put my math paper in my folder." He held out a slightly crumpled worksheet. "Can I put it in now?" Rebecca smiled. "Of course you can. That was excellent work today, by the way. I especially liked how you explained your thinking on problem number 4. A ghost of a smile flickered across Ethan's face, there and gone so quickly Rebecca might have missed it if she hadn't been looking. "Thanks," he whispered, carefully placing the paper in his folder. Rebecca glanced at the school entrance where parents were beginning to arrive. "Your mom coming to pick you up today?" The change was immediate. Ethan's shoulders tensed, his eyes darting toward the door. "I think so," he said, his voice barely audible over the chatter of other children. "Well, I'll be right here if you need anything before you go home," Rebecca said, keeping her tone casual even as concern bloomed in her chest. Ethan nodded, then wandered to the reading corner, seemingly absorbed in a picture book about dinosaurs. Rebecca moved to her desk, pretending to organize papers while watching him from the corner of her eye. 3 more children were collected, then 4, the classroom gradually emptying until only Ethan and 2 children waiting for the after-school program remained. Then Rebecca saw her. Melissa Parker walked through the classroom door, her blonde hair, the same shade as Ethan's, pulled back in a hasty ponytail. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and she wore the blue uniform of the local hospital where she worked as a nursing assistant. She scanned the room, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and something else Rebecca couldn't quite name. "Ethan," Melissa called. "Come on, honey, we need to get going." But Ethan was gone. The dinosaur book lay abandoned on the beanbag chair, and the classroom door leading to the hallway was slightly ajar. Rebecca felt a now familiar knot of worry tighten in her stomach. "He was just here," Rebecca said, walking toward Melissa. "He might have gone to the bathroom, I can check." A flash of something, embarrassment, frustration, crossed Melissa's face. "Again? I'm already late for my second shift." She glanced at her watch, then at the empty classroom. "We can't keep doing this." "Why don't you wait here?" Rebecca suggested. "I'll find him." Without waiting for a response, Rebecca stepped into the hallway. This wasn't the first time Ethan had disappeared when his mother arrived. For the past 3 weeks, ever since the school year started, the pattern had repeated itself at least twice a week. Ethan would be fine all day, quiet but engaged, intelligent, occasionally even smiling, until pickup time. Then as soon as his mother appeared, he would vanish. The boys' bathroom was at the end of the hallway, and Rebecca hesitated outside the door. School policy discouraged female teachers from entering the boys' bathroom, but there was no one else around to check. Rebecca knocked gently. "Ethan, are you in there? Your mom is waiting." Silence answered her. Rebecca waited 30 seconds, then knocked again. "Ethan, I'm going to come in, okay? I just want to make sure you're all right." When no response came, Rebecca pushed the door open slowly. "Ethan?" The bathroom appeared empty at first glance. 3 small urinals, 2 stalls with blue doors, sinks set low enough for elementary school children to reach. But beneath the gap of the furthest stall, Rebecca could see a pair of familiar sneakers, blue with orange dinosaurs on the sides. Ethan's favorite shoes. "Ethan, I can see your cool dinosaur shoes." Rebecca kept her voice gentle. "Can we talk about why you're hiding in here?" A small sniffle came from the stall, but no words. Rebecca leaned against the wall, giving him space while maintaining the conversation. "You know, when I was little, sometimes I didn't want to go home either," she said conversationally. "Not because home was bad, but because I had so much fun at school that I wanted to stay longer." Another sniffle, then a tiny voice. "That's not why." Rebecca waited, giving him room to continue if he wanted to. When he remained silent, she asked, "Can you tell me why you're hiding?" The stall door creaked open an inch, then another. Ethan's face appeared in the gap, eyes red-rimmed and damp. "If I go home with Mom now, I won't see her until morning." Rebecca frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "She has to work her other job tonight. Mrs. Winters from next door comes over, but she falls asleep on the couch. I have to make my own dinner and put myself to bed." His lower lip trembled. "I just wanted Mom to stay home tonight." The simple admission hit Rebecca like a physical blow. She knew that Melissa Parker was a single mother. That much was in Ethan's school records, but she hadn't realized the extent of their situation. "Your mom has 2 jobs?" Rebecca asked gently. Ethan nodded. "She works at the hospital in the morning, and then she cleans offices at night." He looked down at his shoes. "She's always tired." Rebecca's mind raced, processing this new information. Melissa Parker wasn't neglectful, she was struggling. And Ethan wasn't afraid of going home with his mother. He was afraid of losing time with her. "Ethan, I understand now, and I'm glad you told me," Rebecca said, choosing her words carefully. "But hiding in the bathroom doesn't solve the problem, does it? Your mom is probably worried about you right now, and she might be getting even more late for work." Shame crept across Ethan's face. "I didn't want to make her late." "I know you didn't," Rebecca assured him. "You're a very thoughtful boy, but the best thing right now is to go with your mom, and maybe we can think of other solutions for next time. Would that be okay?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded, pushing the stall door open fully. Rebecca resisted the urge to hug him. Professional. Boundaries were important, but she gave him an encouraging smile as they walked back to the classroom together. Melissa was pacing when they returned, her phone pressed to her ear. "Have to call in, I can't find—" She stopped abruptly when she saw Ethan. "Never mind, he's here. I'll be there soon." She ended the call, shoving the phone into her purse. "Ethan, what did I tell you about hiding? We go through this every time." Frustration edged her words, but Rebecca could hear the deeper exhaustion beneath. "I'm sorry," Ethan mumbled, eyes fixed on the floor. Rebecca stepped forward. "Ms. Parker, could I speak with you for a moment?" "Ethan, would you mind drawing a picture at your desk while I talk to your mom?" Ethan nodded solemnly and moved to his desk. Melissa's expression was guarded as Rebecca led her a few steps away. "I know you're in a hurry," Rebecca began, "but I think I understand what's happening with Ethan's disappearances." Melissa crossed her arms defensively. "He's always been a little anxious about transitions. I'm working on it with him." "He told me about your second job," Rebecca said gently. "He's hiding because he doesn't want you to leave for work. He misses you." Melissa's defenses crumbled visibly, her shoulders sagging. "What am I supposed to do? I can barely make rent." "With 2 jobs. The night cleaning pays extra for late shifts, and without it—" She trailed off, blinking rapidly. "I'm doing the best I can." "I believe you are," Rebecca said firmly. "And Ethan is an amazing child, which is a testament to you." She excused herself to answer it, finding the after-school program coordinator on the line, asking about the 2 remaining students who should have arrived 15 minutes ago. After confirming she would send them right away, Rebecca turned back to Melissa, an idea forming. "The after-school program runs until 6 o'clock. It includes dinner and supervised homework time. There are scholarships available for families that qualify." Melissa shook her head. "I've looked into it. The waiting list is months long." "Let me see what I can do," Rebecca insisted. "As Ethan's teacher, I might be able to make a case for priority placement." She grabbed a notepad from her desk and scribbled down her phone number. "This is my cell. Text me anytime if you need to talk about Ethan or anything." Melissa stared at the offered note as if it might bite her. "Why would you do this?" "Because that's what communities are supposed to do," Rebecca answered simply. "And because Ethan deserves to have dinner with someone who's awake." A startled laugh escaped Melissa, possibly the first genuine laugh Rebecca had heard from her. She took the number, tucking it into her pocket. "Thank you, Ms. Collins." "Rebecca, please." "Rebecca." Melissa straightened her shoulders, some invisible weight seemingly lighter. "We should go. Ethan? Time to head out, buddy." Ethan approached, cautiously, clutching a drawing in his hand. He held it out to Rebecca. "It's for you." The crayon drawing showed 3 stick figures. A tall one with curly hair that Rebecca recognized as herself, a smaller one with a ponytail that must be his mother, and between them, the smallest figure, Ethan. All 3 were smiling, surrounded by wobbly hearts. "It's beautiful," Rebecca said, her throat tight with emotion. "I'll put it right on my desk where I can see it every day." Ethan's smile was small but real as he took his mother's hand. As they walked toward the door, Rebecca called out, "Ethan, I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" He looked back over his shoulder, and for a moment, hope flickered in his eyes. "Promise?" "I promise," Rebecca said, and silently, she made another promise, to find out what was really happening in the Parker household, and to do whatever she could to help. After they left, Rebecca sat at her desk, the drawing in her hands. In her 5 years of teaching, she'd encountered children from all kinds, of difficult situations, poverty, divorce, illness. But something about Ethan's quiet resignation, the way he hid himself away rather than express his needs directly, suggested deeper issues than a busy single mother working 2 jobs. Rebecca opened her laptop and pulled up Ethan's school records, again. His kindergarten teacher's notes mentioned adjustment difficulties and separation anxiety, but nothing specific. His academic performance was above average, his attendance excellent. No behavioral issues noted except for being unusually quiet. She thought about what she'd seen when Melissa picked up Ethan. The tension in both their bodies. The way Ethan disappeared without a word. the flash of something in Melissa's eyes that Rebecca couldn't identify. The question nagged at her. Was there something else happening in the Parker home that she was missing? Rebecca put the drawing in her bag and began to pack up for the day, her mind still churning with possibilities and plans. Tomorrow, she decided, she would watch more carefully. She would pay closer attention to Ethan's behavior throughout the day, looking for any clues that might reveal what was really going on. Because one thing Rebecca Collins knew with absolute certainty, every child deserved to feel safe, both at school and at home, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong in Ethan Parker's world, something beyond a mother's busy work schedule and a child's loneliness. As she locked her classroom door, Rebecca glanced once more at the drawing Ethan had given her, 3 figures all smiling, all connected, a family that didn't exist, not yet anyway. But perhaps, just perhaps, Rebecca could help make something better for Ethan. Something that would give him reasons to smile for real, instead of hiding in bathroom stalls with tears in his eyes. It was, she decided as she walked to her car, the least she could do, because that's what teachers did. They noticed the children that others missed, and Ethan Parker, with his dinosaur sneakers and his quiet voice and his hiding places, needed to be noticed. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she would make sure of it. The next morning arrived with a heavy September rain that drummed against the classroom windows. Rebecca arrived at school earlier than usual, her mind still occupied with thoughts of Ethan and his mother. She'd spent much of the previous evening researching resources for single parents in the community and making notes about potential warning signs to watch for in children experiencing different types of home stress. She arranged the classroom for the day, setting out the morning activities and placing a special dinosaur book on Ethan's desk, a small gesture she hoped might brighten his day. At 7:45, the first students began arriving, shaking raindrops from their jackets and lunchboxes. Rebecca greeted each child by name, noting their moods and energy levels as they entered. Ethan arrived at 8:02, his hair damp from the rain and his dinosaur sneakers leaving wet prints on the linoleum floor. Rebecca looked past him, expecting to see Melissa, but instead saw an elderly woman with silver hair and a weathered face standing in the doorway. "Good morning, Ethan," Rebecca said warmly. "And hello there," she added, addressing the older woman. "Mrs. Winters," the woman introduced herself with a brief nod. "I'm the Parkers' neighbor. Melissa had an early shift today, asked me to drop the boy off." Rebecca extended her hand. "I'm Ms. Collins, Ethan's teacher. It's nice to meet you." Mrs. Winters shook her hand briefly, her grip surprisingly strong for her apparent age. "Melissa said you were asking about after-school programs?" Her tone was neutral, but Rebecca detected a hint of suspicion. "Yes, I think Ethan would benefit from the structure and activities," Rebecca explained, "and it might help with Melissa's work schedule." Mrs. Winters' eyes narrowed slightly. "Been looking after that boy since he was 3 years old. Never had any problems." Rebecca maintained her professional smile. "I'm sure you take wonderful care of him. The after-school program would just be an additional resource, with educational activities designed specifically for his age group." "Humph." Mrs. Winters glanced at Ethan, who had already settled at his desk and was examining the dinosaur book with quiet interest. "Well, you'd have to talk to Melissa about that. I'm just the neighbor." She checked her watch. "Need to get back. My program started at 8:30. After Mrs. Winters left, Rebecca circulated through the classroom, greeting other students while keeping an eye on Ethan. He seemed calmer this morning, absorbed in the book she'd left for him. When she stopped by his desk, he looked up with that same ghost of a smile she'd seen before. Do you like the book? She asked. Ethan nodded. Pachycephalosaurus was my favorite, but now I think it's Ankylosaurus because of the armor and the club tail. That's a great choice, Rebecca said. The Ankylosaurus was very good at protecting itself. Something flickered in Ethan's eyes at that comment, but before Rebecca could pursue it, the morning bell rang, signaling the start of the school day. As the children settled into their morning routine, Rebecca observed Ethan carefully. In group activities he participated but rarely volunteered. During individual work he was focused and meticulous. At recess, despite the rain having cleared, he stayed close to the wall, watching other children play rather than joining in. It was during lunch that Rebecca noticed something concerning. As the children unpacked their lunchboxes, Ethan pulled out a small paper bag containing only a single peanut butter sandwich, the bread slightly squashed. No fruit, no snack, no juice box, unlike the more elaborate lunches many of his classmates enjoyed. Rebecca approached his table casually. "How's your lunch today, Ethan?" He looked up, a defensive expression crossing his face momentarily before he controlled it. "It's good, I made it myself." "You did? That's very responsible of you." "Mom was still sleeping when I got up." He said it matter-of-factly without complaint. "I try to be really quiet so she can rest before her next job." Rebecca felt her heart constrict. 6 years old and making his own lunches, tiptoeing around the house to let his exhausted mother sleep. "That's very thoughtful of you, Ethan." During the afternoon reading period, while the other children worked on their assignments, Rebecca called Ethan to her desk under the pretense of checking his progress. As he stood beside her, she noticed a dark bruise peeking out from under the sleeve of his t-shirt. "That looks like it hurts," she said, keeping her tone casual. "What happened there?" Ethan glanced at his arm and quickly pulled his sleeve down. "I fell off the porch steps at home. It's nothing." The response came too quickly, too rehearsed. Rebecca felt her teacher's instinct, the one that had served her well for 5 years, begin to sound alarms. But she knew better than to push too hard, too fast. "Well, be careful on those steps," she said. "We need those arms of yours in good shape for art class tomorrow. We're going to be making clay dinosaurs." Ethan's eyes lit up briefly. "Really? Really? And I'm especially looking forward to seeing your Ankylosaurus." For the rest of the afternoon, Rebecca divided her attention between her teaching duties and discreet observation of Ethan. She noted how he flinched when Tyler accidentally bumped into his desk, how he kept his bruised arm close to his body, how his eyes frequently darted to the classroom clock as dismissal time approached. At 3:15, the final bell rang. As the other children packed up, chattering excitedly about after-school plans, Ethan moved with deliberate slowness, methodically placing each pencil in his case, each paper in his folder. Rebecca recognized the behavior of a child who was stalling, trying to delay the inevitable. When Melissa arrived at 3:25, she looked even more exhausted than the day before. Her hospital scrubs were rumpled, and her hair was coming loose from its ponytail. There was a faded bruise around her left wrist, just visible beyond the cuff of her uniform. Rebecca felt her stomach tighten. Mother and son, both with unexplained bruises. "Ms. Parker," Rebecca called, waving her over. "Do you have a minute?" Melissa checked her watch, clearly anxious about time, but walked over to Rebecca's desk. "Just a minute. I've got the night shift again." "I wanted to let you know I've spoken with the after-school program coordinator," Rebecca said. "There might be an opening for Ethan starting next week. They're reviewing his application now." Relief washed over Melissa's face. That would help a lot." "Thank you." Rebecca lowered her voice. I also wanted to ask if everything is okay at home. Ethan mentioned he's been making his own lunches, and I noticed he has some bruising on his arm. The change in Melissa was immediate and alarming. Her body stiffened, her expression shuddering closed. Kids get bruises all the time. He fell on the porch steps, and yes, he makes his lunch sometimes. I'm teaching him independence. Of course, Rebecca said, backpedaling slightly. I just wanted to check if there's anything you or Ethan might need help with. We're fine, Melissa said, her tone clipped. Ethan, let's go. This time, Ethan didn't disappear to the bathroom. He approached his mother with the same caution Rebecca had observed earlier, standing slightly farther from her than would be natural. As they left the classroom, Rebecca noticed that Melissa didn't take Ethan's hand or place a reassuring arm around his shoulders, the casual physical affection most parents showed their young children. After they left, Rebecca sat at her desk, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Something was definitely wrong in the Parker household. The matching bruises, Ethan's hiding behavior, Melissa's defensive reaction to simple questions, all pointed to possibilities Rebecca didn't want to consider but couldn't ignore. As a mandated reporter, Rebecca had a legal and ethical obligation to report suspected child abuse. But she'd also seen the damage done by premature reports, the families torn apart by misunderstandings, the trust destroyed between teachers and parents. She needed more information before taking such a drastic step. Rebecca picked up her phone and scrolled to the contact entry she'd created last night. Marie Daniels, school social worker. She hit dial. Marie answered on the third ring. Rebecca, everything okay? I'm not sure, Rebecca admitted. Do you have time to meet about one of my students? I'm concerned. 20 minutes later, Rebecca sat in Marie's small office describing her observations of Ethan and Melissa Parker. Marie listened attentively, making occasional notes. The bruises concern me, Marie said when Rebecca finished, but they could be explained by accidents, as Melissa suggested. What worries me more is the hiding behavior and the flinching. Those are classic stress responses. So you think there's abuse happening? Rebecca asked, her voice tight. Marie leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. Not necessarily. There are many forms of household stress that can cause similar behaviors in children. Financial insecurity, which we know exists in this case, parental depression, domestic violence, even if it's not directed at the child. Domestic violence? Rebecca repeated. But Melissa is a single mother. Single now, Marie pointed out. That doesn't mean there isn't an ex in the picture. Have you checked Ethan's registration forms? Is a father listed? Rebecca shook her head. Just Melissa as the legal guardian. No mention of a father. That's something we should look into. Marie tapped her pen against her notepad. For now, I think your instinct to move carefully is the right one. The after-school program is an excellent first step. It provides Ethan with additional support and gives us more opportunities to observe. I'll make some inquiries with my contacts at social services, see if the family has any history in the system. And in the meantime? Rebecca asked. Keep building trust with both Ethan and Melissa. Document everything you observe. Dates, times, specific behaviors or comments, and if you see any escalation, more serious injuries, extreme fear responses, call me immediately. Rebecca nodded, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. I just want to help them. Both of them. I know you do, Marie said gently. But remember, Rebecca, your primary responsibility is to Ethan. If it comes down to a choice between helping Melissa or protecting Ethan, there's no question where your duty lies. The words stayed with Rebecca as she drove home through the gathering dusk. Rain had started again, a fine mist that blurred the streetlights and turned the road slick. She found herself taking a detour, driving slowly down Maple Street where she knew the Parkers lived. Their house was small and in need of paint, set back from the street behind a patchy lawn. A single light glowed from what Rebecca assumed was the kitchen. In the driveway sat an aging sedan with mismatched front and rear bumpers. As Rebecca drove past, she caught a glimpse of a figure at the kitchen window, Ethan, standing on what appeared to be a step stool, washing dishes. 6 years old and already shouldering adult responsibilities. The image stayed with Rebecca long after she arrived home. That night, as she prepared lessons for the next day, her phone chimed with a text message. It was from Melissa Parker. "Thanks, you for the dinosaur book." Ethan couldn't stop talking about it. "And thank you for looking into the after-school program. We really need this." Rebecca stared at the message, sensing the difficulty it must have taken for the proud, defensive Melissa to express gratitude. She typed her reply carefully. "You're welcome. Ethan is a wonderful child. I'm here to support both of you, however I can." The response came almost immediately. "No one said that to us in a long time." Rebecca's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to ask questions about Ethan's father, about their situation, about the bruises, but knew it wasn't the right time or medium. Instead, she simply wrote, "Well, I'm saying it now. See you tomorrow." Sleep eluded Rebecca that night. She tossed and turned, her mind filled with images of Ethan hiding in the bathroom stall, of the bruises on his arm, of his small figure washing dishes alone in a dimly lit kitchen. When she finally drifted off near dawn, her dreams were troubled by scenarios she couldn't quite control or resolve. The next morning arrived cloudy but dry. Rebecca arrived at school determined to make progress in understanding Ethan's situation. She'd prepared a special activity for the class, a family traditions sharing circle where each child would talk about something special their family did together. The activity had a dual purpose, to build. She wouldn't force any child to share, but sometimes, given the right prompts, children revealed important information without realizing its significance. When Ethan arrived, escorted once again by Mrs. Winters, Rebecca noticed that he was wearing a long-sleeved shirt despite the warm September weather. His hair was uncombed, his shoelaces untied, small details that might mean nothing or might mean everything. "Good morning, Ethan," Rebecca greeted him. "We're doing something special in circle time today. I think you'll enjoy it." As the classroom filled with children, Rebecca continued her morning routine, greeting each student personally while keeping an eye on Ethan. He seemed subdued, his movements slower than usual as he unpacked his backpack and settled at his desk. At 9 Rebecca called the class to the reading corner for circle time. The children sat cross-legged on the colorful carpet, faces turned expectantly toward her. "Today," Rebecca began, "we're going to share something special about our families. Everyone's family is different, and everyone's family has special things they do together. It might be a holiday tradition, or a favorite meal you eat, or a special place you visit. Who would like to start?" Hands shot up around the circle. Rebecca called on Tyler first. "My dad and I go fishing every Saturday morning," Tyler announced, proudly. "We get up super early and take our boat to the lake. Sometimes we don't catch anything, but Dad says that's not the important part." "That sounds like a wonderful tradition," Rebecca said warmly. "Thank you for sharing, Tyler." One by one, the children shared their family traditions. Birthday pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, Sunday dinners at Grandma's house, camping trips in the summer, movie nights with homemade popcorn. Rebecca noticed that Ethan was listening intently to each story, his expression a mixture of interest and something that looked almost like longing. When only a few children remained who hadn't shared, including Ethan, Rebecca called on Sophia, who sat beside him. "My mom and I have a special thing we do when she tucks me in at night," Sophia said, her voice soft with affection. "We say, 'I love you' to the moon, and then the other person says, 'and back again.' We've done it every night since I was a baby." Several children nodded appreciatively at this tradition. Rebecca saw Ethan's expression change, becoming more closed, his eyes dropping to his hands in his lap. "That's a beautiful bedtime ritual, Sophia," Rebecca said. "Ethan, would you like to share something special your family does together?" Ethan looked up, startled at being called on. He glanced around the circle at his classmates' expectant faces. For a moment Rebecca thought he might refuse, but then he spoke, his voice so quiet she had to lean forward to hear. "Sometimes, on her day off, Mom and I walk to the park. There's a bench under a big tree, and we sit there and she tells me stories about when she was little." His face softened at the memory. "Those are the best days." Rebecca felt a wave of relief. Whatever was happening in the Parker household, there was genuine affection between mother and son. That was something to build on. "That sounds like a perfect tradition, Ethan," she said gently. "Thank you for sharing it with us." As circle time ended and the children returned to their desks for math, Rebecca noticed a subtle change in Ethan. He sat a little straighter, participated a little more freely in the lesson. Sharing his positive memory seemed to have lightened something within him. The morning proceeded smoothly until recess, when an incident occurred that would prove pivotal in Rebecca's understanding of Ethan's situation. The children were playing on the playground equipment when Rebecca heard a cry of pain. She turned to see Ethan on the ground beneath the monkey bars, clutching his arm, the same arm with the bruise she'd noticed the day before. Several children stood nearby looking concerned. Rebecca hurried over, kneeling beside him. "Ethan, what happened?" Tyler stepped forward, his expression anxious. "He fell, Miss Collins. He was trying to cross the monkey bars, but his hand slipped." Rebecca gently helped Ethan to his feet. "Let me take a look at that arm, okay?" Ethan hesitated, then reluctantly extended his arm. Rebecca carefully rolled up his sleeve, expecting to see the original bruise perhaps worsened by the fall. What she saw instead made her blood run cold. Multiple bruises in various stages of healing marked Ethan's small arm. Finger-shaped marks wrapped around his upper arm, and an older yellowing bruise spread across his elbow. These were not injuries from a single fall on porch steps. These were not accidents. Ethan saw her expression and quickly pulled his arm away, rolling the sleeve. "I'm okay, it doesn't hurt much. I think we should have the nurse take a look," Rebecca said, working to keep her voice calm while her heart raced. "Just to be safe." "No." Ethan's response was immediate and panicked. "Please, Miss Collins, I'm fine. I don't need the nurse." The fear in his voice confirmed Rebecca's worst suspicions. This wasn't the normal reluctance of a child who disliked medical attention. This was the fear of a child who had been warned against revealing too much. "Tell you what," Rebecca said, making a split-second decision. "Why don't you come help me in the classroom for the rest of recess? We can get an ice pack for your arm and you can help me set up the art supplies for this afternoon." Relief flooded Ethan's face. "Okay." As they walked back to the classroom, Rebecca's mind whirred with implications and decisions. The bruises were undeniable evidence of physical abuse. As a mandated reporter, she had no choice now. She needed to contact Child Protective Services immediately. But first she wanted to give Ethan a chance to talk to her directly, in the safety and privacy of the empty classroom. Once inside, Rebecca retrieved an ice pack from the mini fridge she kept for emergencies. She handed it to Ethan, who pressed it against his arm with practiced ease that suggested this wasn't his first time treating his own injuries. "Ethan," Rebecca said gently, sitting down at a student desk beside him rather than towering over him at her teacher's desk. "I noticed you have several bruises on your arm. I'm concerned about how you got them." Ethan stared at the ice pack, not meeting her eyes. "I told you I fell on the porch steps." "All those different bruises from one fall?" Rebecca kept her tone gentle, non-accusatory. "Some of them look older than others. And some—" She hesitated, then continued carefully. "Some look like someone might have grabbed your arm very hard." Ethan's breathing quickened, his small chest rising and falling rapidly. "I'm really clumsy. I fall a lot." Rebecca recognized the signs of a child who had been coached on what to say, who had internalized the need to protect his abuser. She'd seen it before in her teaching career, and it never failed to break her heart. "Ethan, I want you to know something very important." She waited until he reluctantly met her eyes. "If someone is hurting you, it is never, ever your fault. And my job, the most important part of my job, is to keep you safe." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. "You can't. You'll make it worse." The simple admission hung in the air between them. Not a denial, but a confirmation wrapped in hopelessness. "Who will I make it worse for, Ethan?" Rebecca asked softly. A tear escaped, rolling down his cheek. "For Mom. He'll hurt her even more if anyone finds out." "He? Not she? Not Melissa?" "Who is he, Ethan?" Ethan's lower lip trembled. "Mom's boyfriend, Derek. He stays with us sometimes. He gets really mad when Mom has to work, or when I make noise, or sometimes for no reason." His voice dropped to a whisper. "He says if we tell anyone, he'll kill Mom. And then I'll have no one." The pieces suddenly fit together in Rebecca's mind. Not a single mother struggling alone, but a woman and child trapped in a cycle of domestic violence. Ethan hiding when his mother came to pick him up, not to avoid going home with her, but because he feared who might be waiting at home. The bruises on both mother and son. Melissa's defensive behavior when questioned, not the defensiveness of an abuser, but of a victim trying to protect her child from a greater threat. "Thank you for telling me, Ethan," Rebecca said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "That was very brave. And I promise that I will do everything I can. Right now, the most important thing is keeping you safe today. And then we'll work on how to keep both you and your mom safe tomorrow, and the next day, and every day after that." The recess bell rang, signaling the return of the other children. Ethan hastily wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Why don't you go to the bathroom and wash your face?" Rebecca suggested gently. "Take your time. I'll tell the class you're helping the nurse with something." After Ethan left, Rebecca quickly dialed Marie's extension. When the social worker answered, Rebecca's words tumbled out urgently. "I need you in my classroom now. It's Ethan Parker, and I need you to call CPS immediately." Marie arrived at Rebecca's classroom within minutes, her expression grave as Rebecca pulled her aside and quickly relayed what Ethan had revealed. "Derek," Marie repeated, jotting the name in her notebook. "Do we have a last name?" Rebecca shook her head. "Ethan only mentioned his first name, but this explains everything. Ethan's hiding behavior, the bruises on both him and Melissa, her defensive reactions to questions." "I'll make the call to CPS right now," Marie said, already pulling out her phone. We need to document those bruises properly, but we'll need to be careful about how we approach this. If Derek is as dangerous as Ethan fears, we don't want to put Melissa at greater risk. What happens next? Rebecca asked, watching as her students worked on their math assignment. Ethan had returned from the bathroom and was sitting at his desk, his head bent low over his work, his movements careful and controlled. CPS will send someone today, given the severity. They'll want to interview Ethan and examine his injuries. They'll also want to speak with Melissa. Marie lowered her voice further. The difficult part is what happens after. If CPS determines Ethan is in imminent danger, they may remove him from the home temporarily. Rebecca felt her stomach clench. That would devastate him. He's worried about his mother, not himself. I know, Marie said softly. It's the tragic reality of these situations. Children often bear the emotional burden of protecting their parents even when they're the ones being harmed. She glanced at her watch. I'll make the call now and request an investigator who specializes in domestic violence cases. They tend to understand the complexities better. As Marie stepped out to call Child Protective Services, Rebecca returned to her teaching, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy for her students while her mind raced with concerns for Ethan. She noticed how he kept glancing toward the door, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. The fear that Derek had instilled in him was palpable, a constant presence that shadowed his every movement. Shortly before lunch, Marie returned and beckoned Rebecca to the hallway. CPS is sending an investigator named Linda Ramirez, Marie informed her. She'll be here at 1 o'clock. She specializes in cases involving domestic violence and has a good track record of keeping families together when possible, while ensuring safety. What should I tell Ethan? Rebecca asked. The truth, but gently, Marie advised. He needs to know what's happening, but with reassurance that he's not in trouble and that we're trying to help both him and his mother. When the lunch bell rang, Rebecca asked Ethan to stay behind for a moment. As the other children filed out toward the cafeteria, she knelt beside his desk. Ethan, I want you to know that I've spoken to our school social worker, Ms. Daniels, about what you told me, Rebecca began carefully. This afternoon, a lady named Ms. Ramirez is going to come talk with you. She helps children and families who are in difficult situations. Fear flickered across Ethan's face. Is she going to take me away from my mom? No one wants to separate you from your mom, Rebecca reassured him, choosing her words with care. Ms. Ramirez's job is to figure out how to keep both of you safe. But Derek? Ms. Ramirez deals with people like Derek all the time, Rebecca said firmly. She knows how to handle them, and the most important thing right now is making sure you're not hurt anymore. Ethan's lower lip trembled. What if he hurts Mom because I told? Rebecca felt a surge of protectiveness. This child, carrying such an adult burden of fear and responsibility. The people who are coming to help know how to protect your mom too. That's part of their job. She hesitated, then added, Ethan, you did the right thing by telling me. It was very brave. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is ask for help when we need it. Ethan considered this, his young face solemn. Like when Ankylosaurus needed the other dinosaurs to watch his back because he couldn't see behind him. The reference to the armored dinosaur they had discussed earlier brought a small smile to Rebecca's lips. Exactly like that. Everyone needs help sometimes, even the strongest dinosaurs. After lunch, as the children worked on their science lesson, Rebecca noticed Ethan growing increasingly anxious. He kept glancing at the clock, his pencil tapping a nervous rhythm against his desk. When a knock came at the classroom door at precisely 1 wong, he flinched visibly. Linda Ramirez was a compact woman with kind eyes and a gentle but authoritative manner. She introduced herself quietly to Rebecca at the door, then followed her gaze to where Ethan sat, his shoulders hunched protectively. "Is there a private space where I can speak with him?" Linda asked. "The conference room next to the principal's office is available," Rebecca replied. "Marie, Ms. Daniels, is waiting there." Linda nodded. "And his mother?" "She's at work until 3 o'clock. She's a nursing assistant at Memorial Hospital." "I've already contacted the hospital," Linda said. "They're arranging for her to take a break, so I can speak with her after I talk to Ethan." Rebecca approached Ethan's desk. "Ethan, this is Ms. Ramirez. She'd like to talk with you for a little while in the conference room. I can come with you if you'd like." Ethan looked up at Linda, his expression cautious but not fearful. After a moment, he nodded. "Okay." As Rebecca led them to the conference room, she was struck by Ethan's composure. Despite his age, despite his fear, there was a resilience in him that went beyond mere survival. This was a child who had learned to navigate dangerous waters far too early in life. Marie was waiting in the conference room, which had been arranged to feel less intimidating, comfortable chairs around a small table rather than the formal conference setup, a few children's books and fidget toys available, a box of tissues within reach. "I'll be right outside if you need me," Rebecca told Ethan as Linda introduced herself properly and began to establish rapport. For the next 45 minutes, Rebecca alternated between checking on her classroom, where the teaching assistant was supervising the students, and waiting anxiously outside the conference room. When the door finally opened, Ethan emerged with Linda and Marie. His eyes were red-rimmed, but he stood straight, no longer hunching his shoulders. "Ethan did very well," Linda told Rebecca quietly, as Marie led the boy to get a drink of water. "He was able to give me specific details about the abuse, both what he's experienced and what he's witnessed toward his mother. I've documented the bruising and taken photographs. The evidence is clear." "What happens now?" Rebecca asked. "I'm heading to the hospital to speak with Melissa. Given what Ethan has shared, I'm concerned about her safety if she returns home today. Derek apparently has a key to their house and comes and goes as he pleases." Linda's expression hardened momentarily. "He has a history of domestic violence complaints with previous partners, though no convictions." "Is Ethan going back to class?" Linda glanced toward where Ethan stood with Marie. "For now, yes. I'd like to keep his routine as normal as possible until I've spoken with his mother. The goal is to develop a safety plan before the end of the school day, ideally one that allows Melissa and Ethan to stay together in a safe location." As Linda left for the hospital, Rebecca walked with Ethan back to the classroom. "You okay?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded. "Ms. Ramirez said she's going to help Mom." "She will," Rebecca assured him. "That's what she's best at." For the remainder of the afternoon, Rebecca kept a close eye on Ethan while trying not to make him feel singled out. He participated in the science lesson with more engagement than she'd seen from him previously. Linda just called," Marie said in a low voice. "She's with Melissa at the hospital. It's worse than we thought." Rebecca felt her chest tighten. "What do you mean?" "Melissa has more extensive injuries than what's visible. Cracked ribs that she's been working through, extensive bruising on her torso. The hospital is documenting everything." Marie took a deep breath. "The good news is that Melissa is ready to cooperate." After Linda explained that Ethan had revealed the abuse, something seemed to break in her. She admitted everything and agreed to press charges against Derek. Relief washed through Rebecca. "That's a huge step." "It is," Marie agreed. "But it also escalates the danger level. Linda is arranging for them to go directly to a domestic violence shelter from the hospital. Melissa won't be picking Ethan up today." How do we handle this with Ethan? Rebecca asked, glancing back at her classroom. Linda is sending a CPS caseworker to transport him to the shelter where he'll meet up with his mother. We need to explain to him what's happening without frightening him further. Together, they returned to the classroom. As the dismissal bell rang and the other children began packing up, Rebecca asked Ethan to stay behind. Once the room had cleared, Marie pulled a chair beside Ethan's desk. Ethan, Ms. Ramirez talked with your mom at the hospital today. Your mom told her about Derek and the ways he's hurt both of you. Ethan's eyes widened. Mom told? She never tells. She did today, Marie said gently, because she wants both of you to be safe, just like you do. So right now your mom is still at the hospital and they're helping her with some injuries. When she's done, she's going to go to a special house where Derek can't find either of you. We're not going home? Ethan asked, a mixture of confusion and relief in his voice. Not tonight, Marie confirmed. A lady named Ms. Torres is going to drive you to meet your mom at this safe house. You'll both stay there until it's safe to go home again. Ethan considered this information, his brow furrowed in thought. Will Derek be mad? Derek won't know where you are, Rebecca assured him. That's the most important part of the plan. He can't hurt either of you if he can't find you. A tentative hope appeared in Ethan's eyes. For how long? For as long as it takes to make sure you're both safe, Marie answered. Ms. Torres will be here any minute to take you there. Would you like Ms. Collins to help you pack up your things? Ethan nodded and Rebecca helped him gather his belongings, his backpack, his folder, the dinosaur book she'd given him. As they worked, Ethan suddenly looked up at her. Will I still come to school tomorrow? The simple question, focused on routine and normalcy in the midst of such upheaval, made Rebecca's throat tighten with emotion. That depends on where the safe house is located. But even if you can't come to this school for a little while, you'll go to school somewhere. And when it's safe, you'll come back here, I promise. I don't want a different teacher, Ethan said, his voice small but definite. Rebecca gave in to the impulse she'd been resisting for days and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. And I don't want a different student. So we'll just have to make sure you come back to us as soon as possible. When Carmen Torres, the CPS caseworker, arrived, she brought an unexpected ally. Linda Ramirez had returned from the hospital to help with the transition. I wanted to update you personally, Linda told Rebecca and Marie, as Carmen introduced herself to Ethan. Melissa has agreed to press charges against Derek Williams. The police are looking for him now, and a temporary restraining order has been issued. How is she? Rebecca asked. Physically, she'll recover. Emotionally, Linda sighed. It's going to be a long road, but she's shown remarkable strength today. Once she realized Ethan had disclosed the abuse, her primary concern became his. Welfare, not her own safety, that's a good sign. Rebecca watched as Ethan showed Carmen his dinosaur book, explaining something about Ankylosaurus with animated gestures. He's going to be okay, isn't he? With the right support, yes, Linda replied. Children are remarkably resilient, especially when they know they're not alone in their struggles. She gave Rebecca a meaningful look. You played a crucial role in making that happen. If you hadn't noticed the signs, if you hadn't gained his trust, if you hadn't followed up when you saw those bruises. Rebecca swallowed hard. I was just doing my job. No, Linda said firmly. You were doing far more than your job. You were being the adult that Ethan needed in that moment. Never underestimate how important that is. As they prepared to leave, Ethan approached Rebecca, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his dinosaur book clutched to his chest. Ms. Collins? He said hesitantly. Yes, Ethan? Thank you for following me to the bathroom yesterday. His words were simple, but the look in his eyes conveyed a depth of gratitude beyond his years. Rebecca knelt to his eye level. You are very welcome, Ethan, and you know what? I'm going to be thinking about you every single day until you come back to our classroom. Promise? I promise. And I never break my promises. With that, Ethan allowed Carmen to lead him toward the exit, Linda following close behind. At the door, he turned back once more and gave Rebecca a small wave. She waved back, maintaining her smile until he was out of sight. Only then did she allow the tears that had been building to spill over. Marie placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You did everything right, Rebecca. Everything. Rebecca nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She had done what needed to be done. But as she looked at Ethan's empty desk, she couldn't help wondering what would happen next for the quiet boy with the dinosaur sneakers, whose the temporary restraining order had been extended, providing an additional layer of protection for both Melissa and Ethan. They're staying in a transitional apartment provided by the Domestic Violence Program, Marie had explained. It's a secure building with controlled access. They can stay there for up to 60 days while Melissa looks for permanent housing. She's already applied for emergency assistance to help with a security deposit and first month's rent on a new place. How are they doing? Rebecca had asked the question that had been foremost in her mind since Ethan left with the CPS caseworker. Making progress, Marie had replied. Melissa is participating actively in both individual and group therapy at the shelter. She's also working with a career counselor to find employment that might allow her to work a single full-time job instead of juggling 2 part-time positions. And Ethan... Marie's voice had softened. Ethan is showing remarkable resilience. The shelter counselor says he's opening up more in his therapy sessions and has made friends with another child there. He talks about you in your classroom every day. Now, as Rebecca arranged the morning's activities on the students' desks, she found herself glancing repeatedly at the classroom door. The first students would begin arriving in 15 minutes. Would Ethan be among them? Or would Melissa bring him later, after the initial morning rush? Her question was answered at 7:50 when a hesitant knock sounded at the door. Rebecca looked up to see Melissa and Ethan standing in the hallway, both appearing simultaneously nervous and eager. Good morning, Rebecca greeted them warmly, moving to the door. It's so good to see you both. Ethan looked up at her with a shy smile that contained more genuine happiness than any expression she'd seen on his face before. Hi, Ms. Collins, I brought my Ankylosaurus sculptures to show you. I can't wait to see them, Rebecca said, then turned her attention to Melissa. The change in the young mother was subtle, but significant. She stood straighter, her gaze more direct. The dark circles beneath her eyes had lightened and her hair was neatly styled rather than hastily pulled back. Thank you, Melissa said quietly. For everything. I don't know if we'd... She broke off, glancing down at Ethan, clearly not wanting to discuss the full situation in front of him. Why don't you go put your backpack away, Ethan? Rebecca suggested gently. And then you can show me those sculptures. As Ethan moved to his desk, obviously pleased to find it exactly as he'd left, Rebecca stepped into the hallway with Melissa. How are you really doing? She asked. Melissa took a deep breath. One day at a time. It's hard. Harder than I expected in some ways. I keep thinking I should have left sooner, should have protected Ethan better. Her voice wavered, but she continued. But the counselor says that kind of thinking isn't helpful. That what matters is that we're safe now and we're getting help. She's right, Rebecca affirmed. You're both incredibly brave. That's what they keep telling us at the shelter, Melissa said with a small smile. Brave. She shook her head, slightly. It doesn't feel brave, it just feels necessary. Sometimes those are the same thing, Rebecca replied. She hesitated, then added, I want you to know that I'm here for both of you. Not just as Ethan's teacher, but as someone who cares. If there's anything you need. You've already done so much, Melissa interrupted. The shelter coordinator told me how you arranged for Ethan's spot in the after-school program. It starts today, right? Rebecca nodded. They're expecting him, and they're aware of the situation, so they know to only release him to you or to someone on your approved list. Relief washed across Melissa's face. That helps so much. I started my new job training this morning. It's at the hospital still, but full-time with benefits instead of the part-time position. Between that and not having to work the night cleaning job anymore. She trailed off, emotion momentarily overwhelming her. You're rebuilding, Rebecca said gently. It takes time, but you're doing it. Melissa nodded, composing herself. I should get going. I have a meeting with the victim's advocate before work. She glanced through the doorway to where Ethan was, carefully arranging his clay dinosaurs on his desk, already surrounded by several curious classmates. He'll be okay? He'll be more than okay, Rebecca assured her. We've all been waiting for him to come back. After Melissa left, Rebecca returned to the classroom where Ethan was proudly showing his sculptures to an appreciative audience of classmates. This big one is the mom, he was explaining, pointing to the larger Ankylosaurus. And this is the baby. They protect each other. See their club tails? Those are for defense, and their backs have armor plates so nothing can hurt them from above. Did you make those? Tyler asked, clearly impressed. Ethan nodded, a hint of pride in his expression. At my temporary home. The art teacher there helped me. Where's your temporary home? Sophia inquired. Is it like a hotel? Rebecca intervened gently, knowing this was territory that needed careful navigation. Ethan and his mom are staying in a special apartment while they look for a new place to live, and look at these amazing sculptures he made. I think they deserve a special place in our classroom, don't you? The children readily agreed, and Rebecca helped Ethan arrange his creations on the nature shelf near the reading corner. As they worked, she noticed how Ethan interacted more freely with his classmates, answering their questions and even initiating conversations himself, a marked change from his previous reticence. Throughout the morning, Rebecca observed Ethan with a teacher's careful eye, noting both the changes and the constants in his behavior. He participated more actively in class discussions, raising his hand frequently during the math lesson. During independent work time, he maintained his usual focus and meticulous approach. At recess, instead of standing alone against the wall, he joined a small group playing with the building blocks in the covered play area. But there were still signs of his recent trauma. He flinched when a book dropped loudly to the floor. He kept checking the classroom door, as if reassuring himself of his safety. And when two fifth-grade boys began arguing loudly in the hallway, Ethan's body tensed visibly, his breathing quickening until Rebecca quietly moved to his side, her presence a reminder that he was protected here. At lunch, Rebecca noticed that Ethan's lunchbox contained a more substantial meal than his previous squashed peanut butter sandwiches, a chicken wrap, apple slices, carrot sticks, and a small container of yogurt. Another small sign of positive change in the Parker household. The afternoon brought the first art class since Ethan's return, and today's project was perfectly suited to his interests, creating papier-mâché dinosaur eggs. As the children worked with strips of newspaper dipped in paste, forming them around balloon bases, Rebecca circulated through the classroom, offering assistance and encouragement. When she reached Ethan's desk, he looked up with a mixture of concentration and pleasure on his face. his hands sticky with paste, but his egg taking shape beautifully. "That's coming along wonderfully," Rebecca commented. "You have a real talent for this." "The art teacher at the shelter said I'm good at making things," Ethan replied. "She let me use extra clay for my dinosaurs." "Well, she was absolutely right about your talent," Rebecca affirmed. She hesitated, then added gently, "How do you like where you're staying now?" Ethan considered the question seriously. "It's okay. Kind of small, but Mom says it's just temporary. The best part is that Derek can't come there. There's a guard at the door and you need a special card to get in." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "And Mom doesn't cry at night anymore." The simple statement, delivered without drama but with profound meaning, caught at Rebecca's heart. "That is definitely the best part," she agreed softly. "Ms. Collins?" Ethan's tone had turned hesitant. "Is Derek going to jail?" Rebecca knelt beside his desk, bringing herself to his eye level. "The police have him in custody right now and they're working to make sure he stays there for what he did. There will be a trial, but that won't happen for a while. Will I have to see him again? And if that happens, there will be people to help you every step of the way." Rebecca paused, then added, "You know, Ethan, I'm really proud of you. What you did, telling the truth about what was happening, was incredibly brave. You helped keep both yourself and your mom safe." A small smile curved Ethan's lips. "Like an ankylosaurus using its club tail?" Rebecca smiled back. "Exactly like that. Sometimes being brave means protecting yourself and the people you love." As the school day drew to a close, Rebecca helped Ethan gather his belongings for the after-school program. The program coordinator, Jasmine, came to collect him personally, having been briefed on his situation. "Hey there, Ethan," Jasmine greeted him warmly. "We're having dinosaur-shaped cookies for snack today. I thought you might like that." Ethan's eyes widened with pleasure. "Really? Really?" Jasmine confirmed with a smile. "And after snack, we're going to the computer lab to research different types of dinosaurs. Maybe you can help teach the other kids what you know about Ankylosaurus." As Ethan left with Jasmine, he turned back to wave at Rebecca. "See you tomorrow, Ms. Collins." "See you tomorrow, Ethan," she replied, struck by the normalcy of the exchange. A teacher and student saying goodbye at the end of the day, both secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would bring another day of learning, of safety, of routine. After her classroom was empty, Rebecca sat at her desk, reflecting on the day's events. She pulled out her teacher's journal where she documented significant observations about her students and began to write about Ethan's first day back, his increased participation, his social interactions, the moments of tension, the moments of joy. As she wrote, Marie appeared in the doorway. "How did it go today?" Rebecca looked up with a smile. "Better than I expected. He's still processing everything, of course, but there's a lightness to him now that wasn't there before, like he's been carrying this enormous secret. And finally, being able to share it has allowed him to just be a child again." Marie nodded, entering the classroom and sitting in one of the student chairs. "Linda Ramirez called me this afternoon. The prosecutor has officially filed charges against Derek Williams. 2 counts of domestic assault, 1 count of child abuse, plus some additional charges related to violating previous restraining orders from other relationships. He's looking at significant jail time." "Good," Rebecca said firmly. "Will Melissa and Ethan need to testify?" "Eventually, yes. But the prosecutor thinks there's enough physical evidence and documentation that Ethan might only need to provide a recorded statement rather than appearing in court in person." Marie leaned forward. "The system doesn't always work as it should, Rebecca, but in this case I think it's working." Melissa has a strong support network now through the domestic violence program. Ethan is getting specialized counseling. The legal case against Derek is solid. And what happens when their 60 days in transitional housing are up? Rebecca asked. That's actually why I stopped by, Marie replied. The shelter coordinator mentioned that Melissa is struggling to find affordable housing within the school district. Apparently, rents have increased significantly in the past year, and even with her new full-time position, she's having trouble finding something within her budget. Rebecca frowned. So they might have to move out of district? That would mean another school change for Ethan, just when he's starting to feel secure here. Exactly, Marie agreed. I was wondering if you might know of any resources or connections that could help. The shelter is doing what they can, but their housing specialist is overwhelmed with cases right now. Rebecca thought for a moment, then reached for her phone. Actually, I might know someone who can help. My neighbor is a real estate agent who specializes in finding housing for families in transition. She works with several property owners who offer reduced rent for qualifying families. She sent a quick text message, then looked back at Marie. It's worth a try, at least. Every little bit helps, Marie said with a grateful smile. That's the thing about cases like this. It truly takes a village. Teachers, social workers, counselors, housing specialists, legal advocates. We all play a part in helping families rebuild. Speaking of rebuilding, Rebecca said, Ethan mentioned that Melissa doesn't cry at night anymore. It was such a simple statement, but it spoke volumes about what their home life must have been like before. Marie nodded soberly. Children notice everything. They may not always understand what they're seeing, but they absorb it all. That's why early intervention is so crucial in these cases. The fact that you noticed Ethan's hiding behavior and followed up on it. She shook her head slightly. You may never know the full impact of that action, but I can tell you it potentially saved 2 lives. I was just doing my job, Rebecca demurred. No, Marie said firmly, echoing Linda Ramirez's words from the previous week. You were going above and beyond your job. Many teachers might have dismissed his behavior as simple shyness or anxiety. You saw it for what it was, a cry for help. Rebecca's phone chimed with an incoming text. She glanced at it, then looked up at Marie with a cautious smile. My neighbor says she might have a lead on a 2-bedroom apartment near Westside Park. It's a new program for families affected by domestic violence. Reduced rent for the first year while they get back on their feet. She's going to call Melissa directly. That's fantastic news, Marie said warmly. And it's right in this school district. Just a few blocks away, actually, Rebecca confirmed. Ethan could walk to school on nice days. As Marie left to return to her own office, Rebecca completed her journal entry about Ethan's day, ending with a reflection that encompassed not just Ethan but all the children who passed through her classroom. Every child carries a story. Some stories are joyful, some are painful, but all deserve to be heard. As teachers, perhaps our most sacred responsibility is to create spaces where children feel safe enough to share their truths. Because sometimes, the simple act of listening can change the entire trajectory of a young life. The October weeks passed in a blur of routine and progress. Ethan thrived in the after-school program, making new friends and developing a particular interest in the computer lab where he researched dinosaurs with increasing independence. His academic work showed steady improvement, and his participation in class discussions became a regular occurrence rather than a rare event. Melissa, too, was flourishing in her new circumstances. Her full-time position at the hospital provided the stability she needed, and with the help of Rebecca's real estate agent neighbor, she secured the apartment near Westside Park. The domestic Violence program provided assistance with the security deposit and first month's rent, and a community furniture bank helped furnish the new space. 3 weeks after Ethan's return to school, Melissa texted Rebecca a photo of their new apartment, small but bright, with Ethan's dinosaur sculptures prominently displayed on a shelf in the living room. "We move in this weekend," the message read. "Ethan is so excited to have his own room. We can't thank you enough for connecting us with your neighbor." On the Friday before their move, Melissa stopped by the classroom after picking Ethan up from the after-school program. Rebecca was still at her desk preparing the following week's lessons. "We wanted to invite you to dinner," Melissa said, a new confidence in her voice. "After we get settled in the new place. Nothing fancy, but—" She glanced down at Ethan, who was nodding eagerly. "It would mean a lot to both of us." "I'd be honored," Rebecca replied sincerely. "Just let me know when." As they turned to leave, Ethan suddenly darted back to Rebecca's desk and handed her a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you," he said, then raced back to his mother's side, a mixture of shyness and pride on his face. After they left, Rebecca unfolded the paper to find a carefully drawn picture. It showed 3 dinosaurs now, a large Ankylosaurus, a medium-sized one and a small one, all standing together beneath a smiling sun. At the bottom in Ethan's improving handwriting were the words, "Thank you for helping us be safe." The following Wednesday evening, Rebecca stood at the door of Melissa and Ethan's new apartment, a houseplant in one hand and a bag containing a new dinosaur book in the other. She could hear movement inside, and then the door opened to reveal Ethan, beaming with pride in his dinosaur t-shirt. "Ms. Collins, you came," he exclaimed as if he'd been uncertain she would actually appear. "I promised I would," Rebecca reminded him with a smile, "and I always keep my promises." Melissa appeared, behind Ethan, looking more relaxed than Rebecca had ever seen her. "Please come in," she invited. "It's not much, but it's ours." The apartment was indeed small, but it radiated warmth and security. Simple furniture, freshly painted walls in a soft yellow, curtains that matched the blue sofa, all created an atmosphere of home. On the walls were several framed children's drawings that Rebecca recognized as Ethan's work, including a particularly detailed Ankylosaurus that dominated the living room wall. "Ethan, why don't you show Ms. Collins your room while I finish dinner?" Melissa suggested. "Yes!" Ethan grabbed Rebecca's hand without hesitation, a casual physical contact that would have been unthinkable a month ago, and pulled her down a short hallway. "Look at my dinosaur room." Ethan's bedroom was a child's dream, not because of expensive furnishings or toys, but because every element had been thoughtfully chosen to reflect his interests. The twin bed sported dinosaur-patterned sheets. A small bookshelf contained a growing collection of dinosaur books. A desk by the window held his clay sculptures and art supplies. And on the wall above his bed hung a poster showing various dinosaur species with their names and characteristics labeled. "Mom found that poster at a garage sale," Ethan explained proudly. "It only cost $1, and look," he pointed to a particular dinosaur on the poster. "There's Ankylosaurus. It says they lived in the late Cretaceous period and could grow up to 20 feet long." "Your room is amazing," Rebecca said sincerely. "I especially like how you've arranged your sculptures on your desk. Like a little museum." Ethan's face lit up at the comparison. "That's what I told Mom. I said we should charge admission, but she said maybe we should wait until I have more exhibits." Rebecca laughed, delighted by this glimpse of humor and normal.